Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, November 10th. Let's start by going to Google Classroom and finding our ReadWorks story. Remember, it's under classwork. You can pause the video now and go do the story, or you can watch the whole video and do it when you're finished. Don't worry about this freckle backpack stuff. That's just for the kids that are at school. Second job of the day is to work on your No Red ink. Remember, this is due on Friday. We're going to take 15 minutes every single day this week to make sure that it's done by Friday. When we're talking about the Revolutionary War today, we're going to talk about two different groups of people. Both of these groups of people lived in the United States, but they had really different opinions about how things should happen during this Revolutionary War time.
In late May of 1775, news of the battles at Lexington and Concord reached London. When George III was told of the defeat at Concord, he called his undersecretary a liar and claimed victory. He knew this meant war. The king was quoted as saying, "I'm not sorry that blows must decide." In the American colonies, public opinions on a war with the mother country were divided. A civil war-like atmosphere ensued in some areas, splitting many families. Those who supported the war against George III in Britain were given the name Patriots. Patriots came from a wide array of social and economic backgrounds. Lawyers such as John Adams and Alexander Hamilton, planters like Thomas Jefferson and George Mason, merchants, farmers, and ordinary citizens all helped to bolster the rebellion. Many patriots were active before the war in the Sons of Liberty or similar groups. The most prominent leaders of the patriots included wealthy men such as John Hancock, well-educated individuals like Benjamin Franklin, and political activists such as Samuel Adams. Consensus among historians is that around 45% of the white colonists supported the Patriots' cause. Opposing the efforts of the Patriots were the Loyalists, who supported the British monarchy. They were commonly referred to as Tories, and the largest number of Loyalists were found in the colonies of New York and New Jersey. Loyalists also made up a substantial portion of the population in North and South Carolina, where royal governors there attempted to recruit people to their side. In the South Carolina backcountry, where many Scottish immigrants lived, even larger numbers of men fought for the British than they did for the Patriots. Loyalists in these areas tended to be older and wealthier, but many chose to side with the king for reasons other than loyalty or fear of losing fortunes if trade markets were threatened. Many active Church of England or Anglican Church members remained loyalists throughout the war's entirety. By the summer of 1776, Patriots controlled most of the territory in the American colonies, and royal officials were removed from power. Loyalists in the South were persecuted by local patriots. Property was confiscated, and outspoken supporters of the king were even threatened with public humiliation or physical attack. Some loyalists who actively aided the British were even executed. At the end of the war, about 20% of the Loyalists fled to areas that remained in the British Empire, especially Canada. The exit of so many royal officials, wealthy merchants, and landowners had a profound impact on many colonies. However, the vast majority of Loyalists stayed in the colonies and became citizens of the new republic. Historians have estimated that about 20% of the 2.5 million whites in the American colonies were Loyalists, accounting for around 500,000 people.
So, let me go back to this. Some people were loyal to King George III. They wanted the United States to stay under his control. So that's why they called him loyalists. The Patriots were the people that were fighting for freedom. They wanted freedom from Great Britain's rule because of taxes and all those things that we've been talking about the last few days. But these people were living in the same towns and the same neighborhoods, and they were neighbors from each other. So there were a lot of conversations and arguments and fights between neighbors because one group of people thought we should be free, and the other group of people thought that we should still be loyal to the king and do whatever the king said. So when the war started and the battle started, these two groups of people fought against each other, even though they were both colonists. The story that we're going to read today is called Katie's Trunk by a person named Anne Turner, and it's about a family of what they called Tories. And Tories are the same thing as loyalists. They're exactly the same thing. And so it's about a family of loyalists, and they call them Tories, and about some patriots who break into their house. Now you have two choices today. You can click on the link and have someone else read you the story.
Katie's Trunk by Anne Turner.
Or you can click on the PDF link right here, and you can open up the story. It'll open up in a story like this, and you can scan through and read it yourself. Or you could hit play over here.
Katie's Trunk by Anne Turner.
And you could flip back and forth and hear someone else read the story.
By Ron Himmler. I chose this book because the setting is back during the Boston Tea Party. When I'd been bad all day long, hiding Hattie's doll under the sofa and never telling where it went, Mama sighed.
So you have a choice. You can listen to someone else read it, you can read it by yourself, or you can do it at the same time. When you're finished, you need to go back to reading counts again and take the quiz. So I'll put a box in here, and I'll say quiz score, and then remember yesterday it was how many you got right out of 10. So you need to tell me that so that I can record it for you, okay? It will count as a reading counts quiz, one of your 2 a month. It'll also count as part of your grade. Okay, let me make this bigger. So in Science Today, we're talking about the difference between physical changes and chemical changes. When something changes physically, it doesn't change into something else. It stays the exact same thing. We might be able to change its size. We might be able to change, what color it is by coloring it, by painting it, but it's still going to be the same substance. Most of the time, it can be undone. So an example of a physical change might be tearing up a piece of paper into smaller pieces. It's still paper, just smaller. We could break a piece of glass. It's broken, but it's still glass. Or any of those phase changes we discussed yesterday, where it was a solid to a liquid to a gas. We're going to concentrate more on chemical changes, though, today and tomorrow. A chemical change creates a brand new substance. Something new is created. And most of the time, it can't be undone. There's several ways to determine whether or not a chemical change has taken place. We need to look for evidence that there has been a chemical change. And here are some ways to decide if a chemical change or a chemical reaction has happened. If a chemical change has happened, you might be able to take two liquids. When you combine them, they become a solid. So let me show you what that would look like. Maybe. Let me try this. I'm going to make it bigger. There we go. So there's one of the two solid liquids that she's going to pour in the container. It's just a liquid. See how it's dripping? And then she's got another liquid called silver nitrate. Look what happens when the liquid hits the other liquid. It begins to turn into a solid, and it falls to the bottom of the test tube. See that solid? So that means there has been a chemical reaction. When two liquids combine and a solid is made, there has been a chemical reaction. So let's look at the next one. A color change. A color change can indicate that a chemical reaction has taken place. For example, we would expect that a blue and a yellow liquid would combine to make a green liquid. However, if the same two liquids created a red product, that would be evidence of a chemical reaction. So let's see if we can get this to... There we go. Now watch what happens when they combine different colors of items in this experiment. This is a mixer. It just constantly stirs. It's called a magnetic stirrer. See this thing at the bottom is stirring the liquid. So right now, we just added some purple to the liquid that was already in there. And look what it's doing. The more they stir, the more the color changes. That is a chemical reaction. We know that a change has taken place because the color is continuously changing. And then the last one is a gas is formed. A gas can be formed when two liquids are combined, or sometimes when a solid is added to a liquid. Sometimes the gas has an odor, and oftentimes it doesn't. It's visible as bubbles rising to the surface. So if you see bubbles coming up in the surface of something, it means that there has been gas that was created, and they're inside those bubbles. So
Hi, I'm Jared. Welcome to Fun Science Demos. Through science, we've discovered that when certain substances are combined, a chemical change happens. And with that chemical change, a new substance can be formed. Today, the two things we're going to mix together are yeast and peroxide. And when we mix yeast and peroxide, we're going to create a chemical change. And we want to take a closer look at that new substance that's formed in that chemical change. Now, this chemical change is going to happen so quickly, we have to keep the yeast and the peroxide separated so that we have enough time to capture that new substance that's formed. To do that, I'm going to pour some yeast into this balloon. I put the balloon on the end of a funnel. We're going to dump some yeast and fill the balloon up. From the jar into the funnel. Going to just feel the balloon to make sure it's filled with yeast, and yep, pull the balloon off. Now, I need to get some peroxide into the bottle. Let's put the safety glasses on and get the peroxide into the bottle. I'll fill the bottle up about halfway. We've zoomed in so you can see the yeast mix with the peroxide. Here we go. I'm dumping the yeast into the peroxide. Now I'm going to shake it up. And you can see the balloon is already starting to fill up. It's capturing this new substance that's being formed when the yeast mixes with the peroxide. Let's shake it up, really mix it together, and watch our balloon capture that new substance. So now I have a balloon that's filled with this new substance that was formed, and we want to take a closer look at what that new substance really is. To take a closer look at this new...
And for this particular activity, we don't need to know what has been created. So ways that you know that a chemical change has taken place is that something new has been created. In the first one, it was two liquids combined to make a solid. In the second one, colors have changed. And in the third one, gas has been formed. So something new was created when you added those things together. Another thing that could happen as a result would be a temperature change. It's very common for substances involved in a chemical reaction to produce a change in temperature. It doesn't come because we've added heat, but instead is generated by energy within the reaction. So when it reacts, it creates energy, and that energy causes heat. I created some flashcards to go with this unit in matter. Those are something you should study every day for the next week or so, because next week we're going to have the test over them. And a lot of that matter information is really similar, like how to figure volume is similar to density, and what does the definition of those two things mean. So if you go to your Google Classroom, Excuse the yawn. If you go to Google Classroom and you click on Matter flashcards, not flashlights, flashcards, you can practice those words. You should do that every day this week so that you're ready next week for the test. And then last but not least, again, if you have not finished your nonfiction book, it's time to get that done. Make a nonfiction book. Also, I've only heard from one person that they finished an I Survived book. And so if you still need the links to the I Survived, I will put those in our slideshow here. I'll put them after nonfiction book. Remember, you need to try to read and pass a quiz over one I Survived book. And then you need to let me know so that I know that you've passed the quiz. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.